Good morning, everyone. I'm so happy to be here with you and to kind of piggyback off of the conversation that I was able to catch you having with Melissa at the end about talking about resiliency and feeling, connected. And I think today we're going to talk about signs of suicide. So we're going to talk about, how to look out for our friends and how to look out for ourselves. So I think these are great topics to kind of talk about together. And, here I loved hearing how you feel connected and the groups that you feel connected with, and we're just going to talk about how to continue to look out for ourselves and to look out for our friends. So again, I am suicide prevention specialist with Jewish Family and Children's Services. I do see some familiar faces in here. So I do this program in the public schools in Philly. So some of you I may have met before. I definitely am seeing familiar faces in here, so that's really exciting. And we'll get into it. I'll let Adriana introduce herself, and then we'll get into this program and talk about ways that we can be connected and how to get help if we're ever worried about ourselves, if we're worried about a friend, and look out for signs of depression and look out for signs of suicide.
Hi, everyone. Good morning. I'm also really happy to be here. I'm Adriana. I am the youth therapist at Jewish Family and Children's Service. So I work with anyone from about the ages of 10 to 18, and even some people who are over 18 as well. I'm kind of here to provide some support. So if anyone, does need to reach out, there will be opportunities to connect with me. So I'm definitely really glad to be here to support this. Thank you.
Excellent. Yeah, so what we're going to do today, and we're going to meet again on Wednesday, so there'll be 2 parts to this program. What we're going to do between today and Wednesday is we're going to watch 3 videos, and in between each video, we're going to stop and have a discussion. At that time, you all are welcome to unmute yourselves. You could put your responses in the chat. You could, if you feel more comfortable, you could even privately message me in the chat. I can read out your responses and not say, who said what, if that's something that you feel more comfortable with. And then at the end of today's program, and we'll probably send it to you twice, just in case, I'm going to send a form that says, based on today's conversation, would you like to talk to somebody? And that will be Adriana checking in with you afterwards. So you'll put in, your phone number and your email address, and she'll check in with you, within, a reasonable amount of time, just to make sure, again, if there's anything that comes up today that you feel like you need to talk to someone, we have a lot of support here. You have myself and Adriana, but we also have, Melissa and all your other instructors that are here. So if there is someone that you feel more comfortable talking to, please feel free to just reach out to, any adult that you feel comfortable talking to. We recognize that talking about this topic is really important, but it can also be really difficult for some of us. It might hit a little bit closer to home than others. I encourage you to please be kind to yourselves. If you feel like you need to take a break, please take a break. If you feel like you need to talk to someone, please do not hesitate. We are all here for you to support you. So know that we as resources are available. I am putting in the chat right now 2 numbers. The first is the crisis text line. So this is a number that you can text 741-741. You can text ACT to that number, or if you want to talk to somebody on the phone, we have the National Suicide Prevention Lifeline. The number is 1-800-273-8255. These are numbers that you could call or text 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Again, we always encourage you to reach out to your trusted adults, but these are extra supports. I encourage parents, teachers, friends, everyone to have these numbers in our phone, because we never know when we're going to need them. So it's just a really fantastic thing to have kind of just at our fingertips, because I know we're all pretty connected to our phones. So take a second to write this down. And what we're going to do is I'm going to pull up our first video. And in this video, you're going to watch 2 friends. You're going to watch 2 friends, Riley and Caitlin. And I just want you to look out for, what are warning signs that you notice? And maybe how would we handle these situations? And then we're also going to learn the ACT message, which, no, this is not Riley and Caitlin. Sorry. No, we do have Riley and Caitlin. Sorry, I like different content and I get them confused. But so you're going to learn the ACT message. So, pay attention to what ACT stands for. And we'll talk about it when we finish this video. And let me know if you have any issues hearing anything or anything like that. And hopefully this video will load for us.
When we filmed this video last year, we couldn't predict the impact the pandemic would have. It's been frustrating. We've had to take a break from a lot of things, find new ways to connect with friends, and navigate a whole different life at home. And for some of us, it's been even harder. When parents lose jobs or someone gets sick, it's really stressful. Some of us have lost loved ones. And with all this going on, we still need to find ways to take care of ourselves and look out for our friends. So today we are going
I'm in a different location and clearly that my internet is not as good. Let's see if I can.
To learn about suicide prevention. It can be a difficult topic to think about, but it's important we learn how to help each other. If it gets too overwhelming, reach out.
Okay, let's try something else. Melissa, do you have access to the MindWise website? I wonder if maybe your sharing might be better than mine. Is Melissa still here?
I'm here.
Oh, okay. Do you have access to the MindWise website?
No, I don't.
Okay, let me try some more time. We'll see what happens.
To a trusted adult. Some of the scenes in this video may not match your life right now. The time you spend in school might look a little different, or you may be watching this from home. But the steps you take to help yourself or a friend are exactly the same. Just remember ACT. Acknowledge signs of suicide in a friend. Show a friend that you care. Tell a trusted adult. It just might save someone's life.
My name is Connor Lee, and I'm 16 years old. When I was a child, I would say I was very energetic. I was very extroverted. I liked to hang out with my friends a lot. I was diagnosed with ADHD at a pretty young age. There were a bunch of challenging times for me. I was bullied a lot, and I started to hate myself. So the depression sort of started at elementary school age. It didn't get too severe until towards the end of middle school. I actually felt sad all the time. I just felt drained of all positive emotion. I wouldn't do schoolwork. I didn't really want to talk to anybody. Every time I got home, I sort of just laid down and just accepted nothingness.
Feeling sad is usually a temporary thing that's related to something that happened in someone's life or some situation or event. Feeling depressed is when someone is experiencing maybe sad feelings and probably a bunch of other kinds of things that feel bad too over a long period of time, and that it's getting in the way of doing things that people typically like to do.
I felt, even with my friends, I was alone. I wanted to be funny, so I put on a face for my friends, but on the inside I was just hurting. I felt like I wasn't enough for the people around me, and I felt like I could be doing so much more, but I just couldn't. I just started to feel alone, and that I didn't matter, and that maybe I was just better off just not being alive. My girlfriend at the time, she decided that she would take initiative and she would go talk to the school counselor. At that point, I was starting to feel suicidal. I talked to her about it a couple times. One of the things the school counselor made me do was she handed me a paper to ask, on a scale of 1 to 10, how do you feel on most days? How many times have you had suicidal thoughts? Which really made me see that this was much bigger than I had thought it was before. I was tired of hiding, so I made a post about it, telling everyone how I was actually feeling and that I had been portraying this character to them and it wasn't actually me. It got a lot of support, and I think it helped make me feel better. I went to therapy, and the first session I felt very awkward. I didn't want to be there, I didn't want to talk about it. It did help though. Getting to actually talk about it, even though it was awkward, getting to say how I felt to someone. I am in a good place now, and the things that help me are, theater is a big one, because that's my passion. One of the bigger parts of my life is that I play guitar. I also use it, just like theater, as another way to find an escape, to go home and I can play guitar and I can be happy with that. And I'm really happy that I can be myself and be who I want to be.
I think because we know our friends, we tend to know when something is a little bit off, regardless of whether or not they openly state that they want help or that something's wrong. So it's important to be empathic and stating that, hey, I am here for you. You're not a burden to me. I want to help you.
There you are. You okay?
Yeah, I just don't like gym anymore.
What? But we both love track.
I don't know. I just feel tired. I feel like I have no energy anymore.
For gym?
Not just that. I don't feel like doing anything. I don't feel like going to school, and after graduation, I can't see anything but working the same job I've worked since sophomore year.
But I thought you wanted to be an engineer.
Can you see me as an engineer? Seriously?
Well, what do you see yourself as?
Nothing.
That kind of talk worries me. The way you look worries me. Exhausted, wearing long sleeves when it's hot outside. You know I've seen the marks on your arms.
So I'm a mess. Thanks for pointing that out. You, on the other hand, are getting out of here like everyone else. You even have a scholarship because you're so smart and talented.
I have my own problems, Caitlin. Last year, I had to get counseling. It helped a lot. It showed me that when one thing goes wrong, it's not the end of the world.
Yeah, but why would you need counseling? You've got it made.
That's what everyone thinks. Leaves more room to live up to expectations. I even stuck in my own head sometimes.
I get that, but you never act stressed. I never would have guessed that you would.
I was really close to my grandmother. And when she died, I had a really hard time. Sure, I covered it up in school, but it was really hard to get out of bed.
I can relate to that. I'd like to go to bed, fall asleep, and never wake up.
Now that really scares me. Look, the counseling helped. Caitlin, please, talk to someone.
Who?
When I was having problems, I talked to my math teacher, Mrs. Lynch. She helped me set up an appointment with a counselor. That helped me.
Yeah, but you had a death in the family. What's my excuse?
You don't need an excuse. If you're feeling down about something, or you just need to talk, that's enough. You could start with the nurse. You could start with anyone.
Look, I don't like the idea of telling my business to anyone.
I don't think of it like that. I think of it like talking things out, like I used to do with my grandmother. You have to reach out. If you don't, I will.
Please don't. Let me think about it. When I'm ready, maybe I'll talk to someone, but not now. It's not as bad as I made it out to be. I'm just a little down. Just give me time.
All right, just Know that you can always talk to me, okay? And promise you won't do anything drastic. Just think about what I said, okay?
Okay. For now, just drop it. I'm just a little down. Just give me time.
You're not just a little down. Take it from someone who's been there. I'm really worried about you. I'm gonna make sure you talk to someone, not just me, someone who can actually help.
I don't know.
Let's go to the nurse. That's a good start. Come on, I'll go with you, okay?
Okay, I'm glad that ended up showing up so we could see. Okay, so who remembers, and again, you all can put your responses in the chat. You could unmute if you want to raise hands, however you all do it here, just to feel comfortable having conversation. So who remembers, what does ACT stand for? What does that ACT stand for? And you can give me some of the letters if you remember A, give me A, C, T. We can fill in the blanks. We can kind of teamwork this together. Excellent. Acknowledge, care, tell. Okay, so what does this mean to you all? Like, how would you use these steps? How would you use acknowledge, care, tell, if you're worried about a friend? Some of them are easy and short to put in the chat, and some of them it might be easier to unmute, whatever you all want to do. Right, so what does it mean to acknowledge, to care, to tell? Talk to them, yeah, tell them that they are important and that they matter, right? We are going to acknowledge that we see that something is going on with our friends, right? We acknowledge, or even ourselves, we acknowledge that something doesn't seem right, right? We acknowledge that our friends are not acting themselves, right? Noticing certain signs, right? We're going to acknowledge that those things are serious and we're going to take them seriously, right? We're going to show our friends that we care about them. We're going to pay attention. We're going to say something to them. And when they talk to us, we're going to listen. We're not going to say like, oh, you're being dramatic, or, oh, you're fine, you're just having a rough day. Like, we are going to take these things seriously. We're going to put our phones down. We're going to pay attention. We're going to really pay attention to what our friends have to say. And we are going to tell a trusted adult. So I like that someone said noticing certain signs. A warning sign is a clue that someone might be thinking, yes, don't drop it if they downplay it. And I think a lot of us have had those experiences. We might have been those people ourselves where we said like, I'm fine, I'm just tired, or I'm fine, kind of brushing it off. And we've had friends like that. And we'll talk about that a little bit more about what to do, if our friends say like, I don't want, I'm fine, don't worry about it. But yeah, absolutely not dropping it, right? And so a warning sign is a clue that someone might be thinking about suicide. What do you think are some examples of warning signs or clues that someone is thinking about suicide? You could think about what we watched in the videos. You can think about maybe experiences that we've had. What do you think are some warning signs? Self-injury. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and we'll talk about that in a second a little bit more. Not wanting to talk, general apathy. Yeah, a lack of interest in the things they used to love. Absolutely. Isolating themselves. Yeah, isolating themselves from friends, from family, from things that they used to enjoy, right? Like that lack of interest. Absolutely. Great answers, everyone. And I appreciate your participation. Yeah, so a lot of these things, like maybe sudden anger or intense sadness, right? We know that depression does not always look like sadness. It could look like, anger or this intense sadness that's not, out of character for somebody. It could be big changes in behavior. Oh, I see someone wrote, they start giving stuff away. Yeah, absolutely. Right? So things like big changes in behavior, like withdrawing from friends or isolating from friends or activities, or no longer having interest in the things they used to do. Talking about suicide. Talking about suicide is one that I think sometimes people have a hard time taking really seriously, because we think that people are maybe saying something because they're like doing it for attention, or they're being dramatic. And those are moments that I tell everyone, like, these are the things that we have to take seriously every single time. Sometimes the way that somebody is kind of asking for help is saying like, oh, if this doesn't work out, I'm going to kill myself. I wish I weren't alive. Like, sometimes people don't know how to say like, I'm really struggling and I need help. It comes out by saying like, I wish I weren't here. And it doesn't matter how casually somebody says it. It's something that's really serious. So I always encourage everyone to take it really seriously, no matter how casually it sounds like someone is talking about suicide. It can be hard to see signs sometimes. Yeah, and I think that's why we're here, right? We're here because I want us to, kind of become a little bit more aware of signs. And sometimes we think like, I don't know what's going on with my friend, but they don't, like, something seems a little bit off. And I want to encourage you all to feel like, let's just be extra cautious, right? So yeah, sometimes these signs are hard to see. And then sometimes we're like, is that, a sign? Is my friend trying to say something to me? Are they trying to show me something? And I want to encourage you all to feel like, even though I'm not sure, I'm going to be extra cautious. I'm going to reach out to my friend. And if my friend seems to like shut out this conversation, then I'm going to go and I'm going to talk to an adult and tell them the things that I've noticed or the things that I've seen. Yeah, because I agree. Sometimes these signs are really hard to see. And that's why we're here to look out for our friends, to look out for ourselves, and kind of feel empowered to, if we're not sure, even to just do something, to say something. Yeah, I appreciate you saying that. Other signs are right, keeping everyone away. Always being alone, right? Isolating themselves, saying they're fine when they're not. You have to make sure that people know that they aren't a burden, that they're worth it. Yeah, absolutely, right? I think sometimes people feel, and we saw that in Connor's story, that he felt like he was a burden to the people around him. And you could tell somebody like, oh, you're not a burden, like you're fine, but still someone might feel that way, right? So, giving that extra support to our friends and kind of getting that extra help that they might need, right? It's worth being wrong if it helps your friend. Absolutely. I think, being extra cautious, there's never anything wrong. And all you're doing is letting your friend know like, hey, I'm worried about you. And we'll talk about that a little bit more, how sometimes friends might not receive that well, but I would rather it's like, I'd rather be safe than sorry in these kinds of situations. I would rather have a friend feel like I'm overreacting. I'd rather a friend feel like I'm totally off, or a friend be angry at me and make sure that I said something, versus the alternative. So yeah, I'd rather be wrong, and just double check and check in with my friends, or if a friend kind of shuts me out. And then, so we've kind of had this like weird year. We might, we'll be back in person, hopefully this next school year. But over this past year, I think we've learned a lot of, how to check in with our friends, how to look out for our friends, how to look out for ourselves. If we aren't seeing friends in person, how can we look out for warning signs? Right? If we're at home, our friends are at home, how can we look out for warning signs, even if we're not seeing them in person? If we're not seeing friends or classmates or whoever in person, how can we look out for warning signs for them? The way people text, yeah, absolutely. A lack of communication, right? Do you have friends that you used to call or text, and all of a sudden they're not responding to any messages, they're not FaceTiming, they're not, maybe you used to chat on video games and they're not responding anymore? Yeah, try reaching out, engage their reaction, right? When you call them or text them, how do they sound? What are the things that they're saying, right? Are they talking about suicide? Are they having feelings of like helplessness or hopelessness? So, paying attention to what people are saying when we talk to them. Other things are to look at on social media, right? What are our friends posting or sharing or like reposting? Or do we notice that maybe that there's some online bullying, right? Do we notice that people are writing mean things about our friends or our classmates? Maybe those are moments where we take pause and say like, hey, you didn't tell me that this is going on, but I see that this is happening. And I think a lot of times people say like, oh, it's fine, I just ignore it, but it can really affect us. So, paying attention to social media as well. Yeah, so I think there are a lot of ways, and I think we learned a lot of ways over this past year and a half of like, it's not just the things that we see in person, but it's maybe the things that we see over text when we talk on the phone or FaceTime, right? How do our friends look if we FaceTime with them? Or what are the things that we're seeing on social media? Or if you had a friend who like, in this program, right? In our summer work ready program, if someone didn't show up for a few days, right? Hey, what's going on? I haven't seen you for a few days. Is everything okay? Right? Or in school, if someone doesn't show up, hey, I haven't seen your face or I haven't seen your name, in our Zoom class, is everything okay? These are just ways that we can check in and make sure that everyone is doing all right, because especially right when we're not seeing people in person as much, sometimes it's hard to notice. So thinking about Connor's story, what warning signs did you all notice in Connor's story? What were some things that Connor talked about that maybe were concerning? Pulling away from friends. Yeah. And family. He had this sense of hopelessness. Yeah, absolutely. Anyone notice anything else? Feelings of alone when he was with his friends, right? He said, even when I was surrounded by people, I felt alone, right? And he also talked about like, he felt like he was a burden, like for the people around him. Yeah, he told his girlfriend he didn't want to be alive. So he was actively talking about, suicide or not wanting to be around. And those are things that like we need to take really, really seriously, right? I think he said it like, I didn't even realize how serious it was until someone, kind of took that second to talk to me about it, right? When he went to talk to that therapist. He said hiding his feelings, right? Feeling like everyone would be better off without him, right? Those are really intense feelings and real feelings that Connor had that needed to be addressed, right? He had these feelings of self-hatred, right? That he was a burden for people around him. He said things like he felt tired all the time. He felt like he was drained. He was sad all the time. He said that he stopped doing schoolwork and that he was, that he had been bullied. So there were a lot of things that were going on there with Connor that were pretty concerning. What do y'all think the difference is between feeling sad and being depressed? What do you think the difference is between feeling sad and depressed? Do we think they're the same? Depression lasts longer and can impact you more catastrophically, sure. Sad is for a moment. Feeling sad usually has a direct reason or cause, but depression just comes. Depression is more like a long-term sadness. It can have sorry, it scrolled for me. And can have a mixture of emotions rather than sad. Yeah, it could be it's a little bit more than that. Sad is in the moment. Depression is a mental illness. When a person is sad, it's not as severe. Depression is consistent. Depression is a way of life to people, and sad is just a couple of minutes. Yeah, depression lasts longer than just being sad. Depression is all consuming. Yeah, these are really thoughtful responses. I'm seeing a lot of themes also, right? So I think we know that like sadness is something that is a little bit sadness is more temporary, right? And sadness is normal. Random sporadic sadness is an effect depression has to do with PTSD or CPTSD. Yeah, sometimes it could be can have to do with, you know, post-traumatic stress disorder. Absolutely. It could be related to other things. It might not be. So, right, sadness is normal. We have good days, we have bad days. And depression is something that, you know, that sadness, we feel like we can still go about our daily life, right? It doesn't mean that we shut everything down. And it's a temporary feeling that goes away on its own. And depression is something that is more serious. Depression is something that lasts longer. So maybe if you're feeling these feelings of sadness, of anger for 2 weeks or more, it's possible that it is depression. And depression is a serious health condition. So there's nothing wrong with depression, but it is something that's really serious and that we need to take it seriously, right? It is a health condition, just like any other kind of health condition that affects our minds and our bodies. So it might affect the way that we feel, the way that we act, the way that we behave. You know, like we talked about, what are some of the warning signs? So it may be these things like we want to withdraw from friends, or we don't find joy in the things that we want to do. So it, you know, can change the way we feel about things, maybe the way we eat or sleep. What's so important to know is that depression is something that you could get treatment for. Again, just like any other kind of medical condition. So, you know, depression is something that is a change in your body. It could be a result of maybe it could be something happened in your life, right? So maybe like someone mentioned like PTSD, maybe there's something that happened in your life that triggered it. Maybe it's something that runs in your family. Maybe it's just something that happens, and that's okay, right? You don't have to feel like you need an excuse. You don't have to feel like you need a reason, like, well, I don't know why I'm depressed, so I shouldn't do anything about it because there's no reason for me to be depressed. You don't have to put that kind of pressure on yourself. Like, we are all human and things happen, right? What's important to know is that depression is treatable. So how do you feel about the fact that Connor opened up about how he was feeling on social media? Right, so Connor posted about his experience. How do you feel about the fact that he opened up on social media? It's a mix of feelings. Yeah, absolutely. And some of us might feel very differently about it. Yeah, you think it was brave of him. Absolutely. It allows others who can connect with him, but social media isn't the best place. I think, and that's okay for us to have mixed feelings about it. Yeah, I'm seeing a lot of people having mixed feelings. Yeah, it could be good, right, for him if it's hard for him to talk to people close to him, right? And I think these are moments that like we all kind of handle situations differently, right? I think sometimes we see like the downside of social media. We think like social media is bad. Sure, it might be interpreted in the wrong way. Like sometimes people are like, you know, it's not for me, I wouldn't do it. But for him, he used social media in a positive way. Right? He was honest and he was vulnerable. He said he was able to it was a way for him to seek support from friends and family who didn't know that this was something that he was going through. Right? I think he felt like for him, it was a coping mechanism and a way for him to get support from the people around him. I think it also can be really good in that there are other people who might have been struggling, who feel very alone in these moments, and all of a sudden that opened up a conversation or let people know that they're not alone. Again, I'm not saying that people need to post on social media how they're feeling. I think everybody is very different. But in his situation, he found that it was something that was really helpful for him. Right? Someone said, I think it's great that he shared, and it was great he used it in a positive way, but social media can sometimes downplay things. Yeah, I think there is really no right or wrong answer here. I think in his situation, it could have been helpful. I agree that sometimes maybe people don't take it as seriously if they see it online. Or maybe it kind of, there's so many people seeing it and then maybe not everyone responds, so I think these are kind of personal preferences. But in his situation, he said that it was something that was really helpful for him. So I guess, how would you feel if Connor were your friend, and you saw this post, but you had no idea that this was something that they were struggling with? How would you feel if you saw this post and this was your friend and you're like, oh, I had no idea? Would you be upset? Would you be happy, relieved, shocked? Anyone else have any other thoughts of how they might react if this were their friend? Confused, concerned? Yeah, you'd reach out. Yeah, and I think, one, I think it's really important. I think someone had mentioned earlier, sometimes it's hard to see these warning signs, right? And so I think it's really important to not blame yourself, right? If this is something that you don't notice, I think it is still common for people to feel like if they are struggling that they have to hide the struggles that they're having, right? They feel like there's this like shame or embarrassment about talking about our emotions and talking about how we're feeling. And I want, so one, as a friend, I want you all to never feel, blame yourselves if this is something you don't notice. And I want to encourage you all to feel like empowered also to not feel like you have to hide these feelings that you have, right? I think, unfortunately, a lot of times people feel like they can't share these kinds of feelings that they're having. And I'm not saying you need to share it on social media. I'm just saying we all, your friends, your family, your mentors, your guardians, they care about you. So don't feel like you can't share the feelings that you are having or the experiences that you are going through. I think sometimes that's why it's sometimes so hard to see these warning signs, is because people feel like they can't tell somebody that they're struggling. And that's why we're here, right? We're here to look out for warning signs for our friends. We're here to feel comfortable and to feel empowered to have these conversations with our friends. And maybe if our friends are not ready to have these conversations with us, but to then say, okay, you know what? I noticed this warning sign in my friend. I need to tell somebody about it. I wouldn't try to bombard them with questions about why they didn't feel they could tell me personally, because sometimes people just don't know. Yeah, I wouldn't say like, hey, why don't I know? Why didn't you tell me? You could have talked to me. This is a moment, instead of going backwards and saying like, hey, why didn't you come to me? Say like, I am here right now. I am here for you. Moving forward, I am here as your support. I'm here to check in. I'm here to talk to you. Because I know sometimes as a friend, you think like, we're best friends. Why didn't I know this? Why didn't you come to me? You can always come to me. I think sometimes we feel a little maybe defensive that someone hasn't come to talk to us because we love and care about our friends and our classmates. But I think it's, just an opportunity to move forward and show our friends that we are here for them and that we're not scared to have this conversation with them, that we are here to have this open conversation. So what did Connor say helped him feel better? What did he say in this scenario was helpful to him in helping him feel better? Playing guitar. Yep. Felt like music, playing guitar and theater, like focusing on things that he enjoyed were good. Coping skills for him helped him feel better. Anybody notice anything else? He said posting on that post that he put on social media, that was helpful for him, feeling like he didn't have to hide his, how he was feeling, being able to talk openly was helpful. And he also said therapy. Yes, therapy, right? He talked to his school counselor, who then connected him with a therapist. He said at first it felt really uncomfortable to talk to a stranger, to talk to somebody about his feelings. And then he said it really helped him to open up and to talk about it. And I think a lot of times therapy can feel really weird, right? You're all of a sudden talking to a person who you never met before, and you're supposed to like share your feelings and share what's going on in your life. It can feel really weird at first. I always want to encourage people to continue on. It might feel strange at first, but it can be really, really helpful to just talk to someone who maybe isn't a friend or a family member, someone who's totally on the outside, who maybe comes with no biases or saying like, oh, well, you're upset because your mom can be like this, you know, who's someone who can really listen, who's not necessarily involved in the situations that you're in. And I think sometimes also people maybe meet with therapists and they're like, that didn't work. That person, you know, I don't believe in therapy. I always want to encourage you, like maybe the first person you talk to, they weren't that helpful or they didn't mesh with you. I a little bit always think of like therapy as dating. Maybe the first therapist or the first girlfriend or boyfriend or somebody that you date is not like the perfect person for you. Find someone who you feel comfortable talking to. Don't say this is not going to work and I'm never going to date again. And I mean, you might say I'm never going to date again, but like you probably will, right? You're not going to swear off people forever. You're going to say like, you know what, this one didn't work for me. That doesn't mean that no one's going to work for me. It just means that I need to find somebody else that I trust. Yeah, someone says I don't trust school counselors half the time. I would say, and that's hard. And I've met with a lot of school counselors, and I think there's a range of school counselors, but maybe if it's a school counselor that you don't trust, is there a teacher that you trust? Is there a coach that you trust? Is maybe it's not someone at school, maybe it's like your best friend's parents are easier to talk to, right? And I do know that school counselors, having spoken to them, you know, I know that they have your best interest at mind. So, but sometimes like there are people that we don't mesh with. I just want you to not give up and feel like I spoke to this person and it felt really unhelpful and therefore there's no one for me to talk to. I want you to know that there are so many other people and avenues of people that you can talk to, right? Like, I'm so glad Melissa said that. JFCS is here. There are so many support people that I see on this chat that, or on our video, knowing that these are extra supports that are available to you. I promise you, no one will ever turn, and if someone turns you away, then like find somebody else because that is not a right person. But like, I know from all the people that I work with at JFCS, all the counselors that I've spoken to, people are here for you. I am here for you. Adriana is here for you. Know that you have support here at school, hopefully at home. You know, I want you all to think about like who your trusted adults are that you can come and talk to. Okay, we can quickly talk about Riley. I love the participation that I'm having with you all today. I love all the feedback. I think I have so much content and I want to also like stop at a good point. So we'll talk a little bit about Caitlin and Riley and we'll wrap it up and we'll come back again on Wednesday and continue talking. But with Caitlin and Riley, what were some warning signs that Caitlin described to her friend Riley? So they were in the locker room. Right, they're in the locker room. Caitlin seemed pretty upset. What were some warning signs that you noticed in this scenario? Maybe when they were talking or just some behaviors. She was tired all the time, wearing long sleeves when it's hot out. She didn't feel like doing anything. Yep. Right, she had this like total lack of interest. She said, I feel tired. I feel like I have no energy. I just don't feel like doing anything. She didn't want to speak to anyone. She didn't want to talk about it. The scars on her arms, yeah. She had this feeling of being like trapped. She said, you know, when they were talking about what do you want to be after high school, she said, after graduation, I can't see myself doing anything. I don't see any way out, right? So she felt trapped. She felt hopeless. She had these like, I don't see any plans for, like, didn't see any plans for her future self. And then when Riley said, right, she had no motivation. When Riley said, like, what do you see yourself, like, what do you see yourself as? She said, you know, nothing, I'm a mess. You know, she said she was tired and that she wished she could go to sleep and fall. She wished she could go to bed and never wake up. And yeah, let's talk quickly about this self-injury, right? That Riley noticed that there were marks on her arms, that she's wearing long sleeves when it's hot out. So, you know, in this situation, it's very possible that Caitlin is self-injuring. And so self-injury is when a person hurts their body. It doesn't necessarily mean, well, they're doing it on purpose. It doesn't necessarily mean that someone is doing it with the intention to die, but it is an attempt often to cope with overwhelming pain or emotions, right? And we'll talk, and I'm going to get to your question in just a second, Caitlin. So we are going to talk about it when we meet again, but we'll talk about coping skills. And unfortunately, self-injury is a way that someone might have learned to cope with the emotions or the pain or whatever it is that they are experiencing. It is a really serious mental health concern that can be treated. So again, I encourage you, if this is something that you notice in a friend, if this is something that you are doing, to reach out, to talk to somebody about this and get the help that you need. Again, if this is a friend that you're noticing, reach out to your friends. Always, if there is somebody that you are talking to and they don't want to have this conversation, they don't want to engage, they say, I'm fine, don't, you know, whatever, let's not talk about it. These are the moments that we need to tell an adult. Okay, Caitlin, go ahead. What's your question?
So I was gonna ask, can it be like a touchy topic to bring up someone's scars or someone's marks? Because I know that can be a trigger topic to some people.
I think it can be. And I think, again, like a lot of these things that we talk about, it can be really sensitive and it can be a trigger. Well, I don't necessarily want to say it's a trigger, but it's possible that it can be. And I just want to make sure that, you know, we want to make sure that our friends or that whoever is safe if these are things that we notice. So, you know, if you feel like you don't feel comfortable talking to your friend about it, or whoever it might be, maybe reaching out to an adult, maybe reaching out, you know, if it's like who your trusted adult is, maybe reaching out to them to ask for advice and having this conversation. So maybe they can reach out to like your friend's trusted adults so they can kind of workshop it together of how to have this conversation. But I think always coming from a space of concern, not from judgment, you know, just letting friends or whoever know that you are there for them, that you notice the pain, you notice what they are experiencing, and that you just want to get them help. And Adriana, you're more than welcome to hop in if you have any other thoughts. And I see that someone shared that they had depression since they were 6 and 17, and now their way was coping. Sorry, hold on. My way of coping was cutting yourself with a razor, but I've learned to cope other ways, like talking to my mom or writing down how I feel. One, I appreciate you sharing that with us. I think that's really powerful. I'm so happy that there are other ways that you have learned to cope. And I think that's a really important message to remember, is we want to like think of healthy coping skills that we don't hurt ourselves, right? We don't want someone to hurt themselves, because it can be really, really serious and you can hurt yourself really badly. So I'm happy that you've learned other coping skills that work for you. And again, these are things that we'll talk about again, you know, talk about and think about what are coping skills that work for us. And I appreciate you sharing that. And I'm really happy to hear that you found other methods of coping that are powerful and work for you. All right, someone said I think the portion of the video was unrealistic because sometimes people don't openly say that they're tired or sit and openly say that they feel like they don't want to be anything. Yeah, I feel like sorry. I feel like people want to hide so they don't feel like they're a burden to other people. I agree. I think there are a range of people, and kind of maybe this was a more obvious video, so we can easily pinpoint what are some warning signs here. But it's true. A lot of times people hide the ways in which they feel. the experiences they have, because they don't want to feel like a burden to others. And I appreciate you saying that, like, you know, maybe this video isn't that realistic. And I do think that there is a range. So I appreciate you saying that. I think maybe this video just highlights ways that we can look out for warning signs. And maybe if this is something that we notice, so maybe our friend doesn't say like, I'm tired, but maybe you see that they're just kind of pulling back, or they're feeling like a little lack of energy. So maybe they're not saying I have a lack of energy, but you're noticing this lack of energy, right? And I think a lot of times we know our friends, right? We know when something seems a little bit off. We know when our friends are not acting themselves. So I appreciate you sharing that. And I think, you know, just giving opportunities to look out and pay attention to these kinds of things. But I do appreciate the really good point that you made. So I know I've gone over a little bit. Right now, what I'm going to do is, like I mentioned earlier, is I'm going to put a link in the chat. This is the form that says, you know, based on today's conversation, I'm going to send you this form again on Wednesday. This is the form that says, you know, based on today's conversation, would you like to talk to someone? And I'm now realizing that it says, because I did this in the school, it asks for your counselor. You could just put in like write NA. You don't have to put who your counselor is, because it asks like who your school counselor is, because I do this in this school. Then I'm now realizing, actually, let me see if I can change it right now to make it so you don't have to fill it out. Sorry, I'm talking to myself. Ultimately, what I'm saying is take a minute to fill out this form. If you feel like you need to talk to someone, Adriana's going to check in with you if you do say, yes, I would like to talk to somebody. But if you feel like you need to talk to someone even more urgently, like, put it in the chat. Message myself, message Adriana, or if there's somebody else here that you feel more comfortable talking to, let them know. We are all absolutely here for you. We want to make sure you know that you are supported, that we care about you, we care about your well-being, we care about your health. If you're worried about yourself, or maybe you're worried about a friend, maybe some of the things we talked about, you're like, I have a friend, some of these things sound a little bit familiar. If you just want to check in and talk about that, about like, what should I do if this is my friend that these things are happening, let us know, right? We are here to have that conversation and to be your support. Again, if you're worried about a friend, if you're worried about yourselves. I really do appreciate your insights today, your responses. I think we had such a beautiful participation. I loved it. I love hearing from you. I think we all learn so much from each other. Again, we're going to meet again on Wednesday, but between now and then, if anything comes up, if you feel any kind of way, if anything resonates with you, please reach out to adults, reach out to an adult. You know, we have this, our acknowledge, care, tell message. So, you know, just remember that. And I look forward to seeing you all again on Wednesday, but I appreciate you all, and I hope that the rest of your day and the rest of your week is fantastic.